video, we are going to be going over the behind the scenes of sorority recruitment because you all voted on my community tab for this video. The other option was things I wish I knew before joining a sorority, and that also got a decent bit of votes too, so I think I'm just gonna try to include a little bit of both, but the primary focus is the behind the scenes of recruitment. So I have this notebook. It's got some textured threads on it, full of notes, because it's been a minute since I've been in a sorority, so I was just trying to rack my brain and remember what all I went through, So just as some background, I was a Chi Omega at the University of Kentucky. Woohoo! And I joined in fall 2017. That's whenever I went through recruitment. And I was in Chi Omega my freshman year. Then I lived in the house my sophomore year. And then I quit going into my junior year. So I went 2 years without being in a sorority, 2 years being in a sorority. So I have a little bit of experience. I feel like I have enough experience, very thorough experience, in such a short time. So I'm gonna give advice and whatever. So I was gonna start off by explaining how sorority recruitment works and things like that, and I already tried filming this video once, but it was really boring because it's just the stuff that you could look up on the website and see the length of the rounds, what you wear to each round, and things like that. And I'm like, no, I need to offer them a little bit more value than what they can already get online. So since I'm all about being a truth bomb and letting people know what's up. So what we're going to talk about is the back end of sorority recruitment. So the first thing I want to say is going into it as a freshman, it was very glamorous in my head. I was so excited. I thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever. And just a little piece of advice, if you are considering joining a sorority, is just know that you'll get to know the girls that live on your hall. If that's how your college does it, they'll split all of the rush groups into people in your building and in your hall, and you'll have a college leader ours were called a Gamma Chi. So it's good in the sense that you get to meet up with people right away after move-in and not have to stress and do it all on your own. So it's kind of built-in, given friends just for you to try out, you know what I mean? So whether you join a sorority or not, recruitment can be a good experience just for that sake, especially if you're coming from out of state or you don't know anyone and you're nervous. I'd really recommend it for that, for sure. But I do want to let you know the back end of things just so you can see what the heck is going on. So in each chapter, I can't speak for each chapter, but I'll just speak for what my chapter did. So we have a board, and it's called the Cardinal Cabinet. It's the marketing department, the art committee, social event people. You can get involved and help with planning the social events. You can help with doing the Instagram account. There's lots of different opportunities for you to get involved if you're interested in that. Or there's the Panhellenic board, which is the overall sorority government and fraternity government, if you will. That's how I would probably put it. So within each individual chapter, there's a person that can be a representative and go to meetings. So if you're more into that kind of stuff, there's that as an option. Or if you want to be the president, the vice president that helps but also deals with grades and keeping up that whole situation for a sorority, you could be that. You could also be a treasurer in your sorority. You could be the new member educator, where you work with the pledge girls. We don't call them pledges, we just call them new members. So a pledge mom, though, essentially is what you do. You could also be a personnel chair, which is the behavioral type of realm, where you do personnel meetings, and if someone gets in trouble or does something bad or whatever, you sit them down, do all that. So you could be that. There's also recruitment there's like just a lot you can do essentially. Or you could be the facility manager who helps around the sorority house. They go through the applications and decide who's going to live there. So that is a whole lot of information. But just to let you know, that is like what a sorority is besides just friends. Let me tap on something. I feel like this is just going to be like the most wordy video ever. So this eyeshadow I'm wearing, Blue Blood by Jeffree Star. His formula, I've never had an eyeshadow that's similar to this at all. Like, it's the best. It's well worth the money too. It just blends really beautifully. And it doesn't feel chalky at all, so. Alright, so the board or panel that I was on was bid day committee. So I did not want to talk to the girls going through recruitment. I thought that would give me the worst anxiety. I was not interested in doing that at all. So for bid day committee, I got to help plan and come up with the theme. Well, like the chapter comes up with the theme in meetings and stuff like that, but once we had the theme, I was on bid day committee, so I was able to help decide, like, okay, like the signs that the girls hold, like what do we want the shape of those to be, what do we want the color of those to be. So ours was like a Candyland, like Kyoland kind of theme, I think. So we did little circle candies with those little like zigzaggy plastic wrap edges. So I was in charge of getting the poster board, getting the glitter, getting the markers, all that stuff, using the credit card of the sorority, getting all the materials set up, telling the girls like what to do, delegating, things like that, making little name tags for bid day, any crafts that needed to be done, that's what I did. But during all of this stuff, while the rounds were happening, I was actually just sitting upstairs in the room, in my room, like hiding. There was a ton of girls that were hiding upstairs because there's some like weird rule where in a sorority you're not allowed to have like a certain amount of people in the house during recruitment because it's like cheating or like something weird. Like, I don't really know what the specific rule is, but there's just a lot of like weird stuff like that. So just like some other behind the scenes about recruitment that y'all probably wouldn't know is that there's something called runners. So runners are actually in charge of cleaning up the house in between each round of new girls that come in. And there's little like bins, a plastic bin with like a pen or a pencil, paper, and things like that. So like the girls are able to take notes on you and on your conversation. And like there's mints in there and just stuff like that. So it's kind of like a mini care package mixed with like a review sheet of you, just so they can remember, because there's so many people that they're meeting. So runners were also in charge of like making sure the bins were hidden and that there was no pencils on the ground. That's another rule. Like, you couldn't have any like sign of taking notes on people. Like, that was like part of a Panhellenic rule. But people did do that. Then there was a downstairs committee that is like the behind the scenes type of people. So they would go through and review people's applications. They would read over the resumes, and they would look at like the photos, and they would see your GPA and things like that. So they had to filter through those because each chapter has a different like GPA requirement and things like that. So if people automatically didn't meet it, they could still come to open house, but they would not at all make it to the next round just because of GPA alone. So it's important to see like your sorority, like go on the website for your like Panhellenic or whatever, and see what the requirements are and see if you match that, because some sororities it's like no tolerance kind of thing, and it's, you know, rude and judgy, but it's just true. I remember them talking about like looking up girls on Instagram and stuff like that just to be like a scout. So that's kind of what downstairs did. And then the upstairs committee was the people that they were talking to the girls. And the thing about, it's like called Spirit Week before recruitment, all those upstairs girls practiced walking. Like, they have like set paths and tracks that they have to follow and sit in certain chairs in certain areas, and then like time it and all this different stuff. Like, someone would walk around, and whenever that person came around, that meant you had to get up and walk to the next person, and like just a lot of heavy duty intense training goes behind recruitment. So as a new member walking in, you're not aware of this. It just feels like a natural flow, because if your sorority that you're going to is good, it will feel good. But some, you could tell like there's mess ups and weird things going on. So everyone's human is just what I'm trying to say with that. But you never know what you're gonna get. Another committee was the design committee. So the design committee, they were in charge of setting up the chairs, the tablecloths, the decor, the flowers, switching out the flowers every day, switching out the, everything like that to make the house look a certain way. There was different sections for each day, because each day kind of consisted of different activities and itinerary, like the philanthropy round versus sisterhood versus pref. They're all different. They all have different design. So that's why there's a specific committee just made for that. So if you're going through recruitment as a new member, just know that like the following years that you're in the sorority, you will be required to participate in recruitment in some way, but you don't necessarily have to talk to the girls if you don't want to talk to the girls, like I didn't. So just letting you know. For Spirit Week, on the other end of it, like I said briefly, it's all the practice, the heavy duty practice. They feed you, and there's a whole like sorority budget set up specifically for like bid day. There's a budget for how much the decorations can cost, the food can cost. There's an allocation for Spirit Week and all the food associated, and like little like peppy, like mood boosting activities, like that's a part of it. So there's just a whole lot that goes behind sororities that you don't really think of, but it does, and it's part of your dues. So I just feel like just to let you guys know that there's like things to be aware of. Now this is tea. I'd probably get in trouble if I said this, but I don't really care. It's okay. So in our particular house, our potential new members that were legacies, like their mom was in it, their sister was in it, something like that. I don't know who made the flyers, but as a person living in the house, one day I just walked in the bathroom and there were flyers of girls all over the walls, like taped on the walls, taped on the like paper towel dispenser, taped on the mirror, taped inside the stall, literally on the toilet, like really weird. But it was the girl's name, a picture of them, and like what their hobbies were, their GPA, like just like a little like marketing sheet essentially for this potential new member that was a legacy, so that all the girls in the house could start familiarizing themselves with who is going to be coming into the house and who we need to be paying like extra special attention to, potentially, because we're supposed to be like impressing them more than others, essentially, because it's a legacy. How weird is that, right, guys? I know, crazy. So it's very odd. Another thing, is this too much information? It probably is. Let's do a little break, a little brushing break. I'm kind of getting anxiety talking about it, so if you're a sensitive person and all this stuff is like too much, maybe a sorority is not for you. Just saying. I'm here to help, and I love you. I'm just trying to tell the truth. Again, I don't know if other chapters did the same thing or if it was just my chapter, but that's the tea. Okay, now another thing that I want to talk about is the voting process, because before I joined a sorority, I know that I was really nervous about this, because in movies you see their like a group of fraternity boys or sorority people or whatever, and they like plop a person on the screen and they all talk about that person and whatever. And it actually is like that, but it's not as in-depth as you might think. So what we had to do every single day after the rounds, I think it was every day, like each set of rounds, like after open house, day 1 and 2 were done, then we'd come together for voting. It was a very private thing. It lasted many hours, like at least 3 to 4 hours. And then philanthropy, at the end of day 1 and 2 of philanthropy, come together for voting. After sisterhood, come together for voting. And after pref, come together for voting. I'm almost positive. I forget, but I'm pretty sure. And we all had to, as a chapter, come into this building. We couldn't have our phones. They had to be shut off and put in a box because it's top secret private. And they would put names on the board of like all these people, and they would be like, okay, are we sending this group through? Vote yes or no. And I'm almost positive we had to like do it on I don't remember like what the system was, because we didn't have our phones. But anyways, you basically had to be like, are you okay with this, yes or no? And if you were not okay with it, you had to say like contesting, like no, like something, and they're like, okay, who's the problem on this board, blah blah blah. Then you had to explain like, oh well, this person, you weren't allowed to be like, oh, they cheated on my boyfriend, so fuck them. Like, you couldn't have a reason like that. But if it's like, oh, like they went to jail 1 year and they're like withholding that information, just like juicy tea type stuff like that, you like had to tell. So in that case, then they would immediately like remove that person from the list and like blacklist them from our like grouping. Does that make any sense? So we just had to go through like multiple groups of people, and it would get heated. Like, people would stand up and start like saying crazy shit, and some people would like defend that person and be like, oh my gosh, no, she's so sweet, that's such a lie, that was just a rumor that happened, blah blah blah. Like, what the fuck? It was just so weird to witness. And I was like starving during this shit, you know what I mean? Like, we couldn't have our phone. It was so boring. So if you're thinking about joining a sorority, you are forced, unless you want to pay money, like pay a fine, you have to go to these things or else you get in trouble. So if you don't want to give up like multiple hours of your day for all these different things that you have to do, whenever it's philanthropy related, if it's like a fundraiser thing that you have to do and show up in person for, and like, you know, give drinks out or whatever you have to do, you had to pay fines if you didn't participate in certain things. So not only do you have to pay for your what do you call it, like your fees for your sorority, you have to pay if you don't participate. So if you didn't know that, now you do. And then I think on the last day of the voting for recruitment, we all had to stay and write down on a piece of paper every single name of the people that we wanted to join. So like all the girls that went through recruitment and were talking to all these girls, they would be like, oh, write this girl down, oh my god, write this girl down. And then like we just had to sit there and do that, and we couldn't talk to each other. Like, it was weird. Like, we could talk, but we couldn't. I don't know. I just feel like I like blacked out because all this shit was so ridiculous. What else can I talk about? On bid day itself, as a new member walking in, I hated bid day. I'm not a big extrovert at all, so it was very overwhelming for me to have to run. So we had to sprint. Like, why couldn't I just walk? No, we had to run to the house. Oh Lord. And look for our name on a sign in a sea of like 100 girls. So that stressed me out so much, because I have like rejection issues and like all these like weird issues, and I'm like, oh no, like what if I can't find my sign? Like, I was so nervous. And the thing is, like, if you guys have heard of like rush crushes, or like, you know, if you and a girl that's already in the chapter bonded really well, that person hopefully is the one holding your sign, but there's also a great chance that it's not. So you get to like meet someone new and experience someone new. But on the other end of it, like the behind the scenes, people would get upset, like, no, like that's my girl, like I'm gonna welcome her, I'm gonna hold the sign. So it's very like catty in the way of like possessiveness over each other. What else can we talk about? This video is gonna be really long, sorry guys. So after you're in the chapter, big little weeks, or at least the way that we did it was you got a new girl in the chapter every week for like maybe 6 weeks or something like that, and they were required to text you like, hello, I'm your person of the week, blah blah blah. I think it was called an owl pal, P-A-L, owl, like cause Chi Omega's owl pal. So they had to text you and they had to invite you to something. So it could be ice cream, it could be to study together, it could be to ask if you need help with anything, or partying. And that's the part that kind of made me uncomfortable, because I like wasn't really interested in any of that particularly, but my girl was like, oh my gosh, yes, like we're going drinking, like do you want me to buy you something, what kind of alcohol do you like? And I had no idea, you know what I mean? So then she's like, oh well, how about Malibu? I love Malibu rum. So then like buying me Malibu rum and then just like getting drunk at parties and stuff, like it was a very like catapulting me into this world that I didn't think I was ready for, and it gave me a lot of anxiety. So if you are similar to me and that kind of stuff gives you anxiety, just know that it's happening a lot around you. Like drinking is like the major focus, it seemed like, more so than just like an innocent getting ice cream. No, like let's go out together. I don't know, stress me out. Let's get something else to tap on. This is my Pleiadian workbook. It's like a spirituality thing. So that is that. What else? Oh, after like big little stuff, it's very, very catty on both ends, being in the sorority and the new member, because the new members like they're becoming possessive over their one girl that they really want as their big, and you like idolize them and you like really think they're the shit. But then your person might not actually feel that way about you, and they feel that way about somebody else. And if you're aware of that and they start hanging out with their owl pal beyond just the 1 week mark, you know, like there's a pretty good chance that like they want them as their little. So then on the other end, the bigs become very possessive over their littles, and they're like, no one can have her, no one can have her, she's mine, she's mine. Chill out, everyone. I will say though, it was fun, like getting the basket and all that stuff, and then we had to go to the house. We had to like rank the girls, like 1 through 5 or 1 through 7 or something, and then on the other end, we did that as well for like the littles. And then there's a whole matching process that happens, but once that happens, then you have to show up to the sorority house every single day to pick up your gift. So like living in the house, everyone was like stressed out about like preparing their basket for the next day, or like the shirt, or like, oh, what are you gonna give your girl? Like, oh, I'm gonna give her this, blah blah blah, what about you, da da da. And then it was all laid downstairs. It was really cute though, like in the living room, like all the stuff laying against the walls. So you show up and then you get a clue along with your little gift or whatever every single day, like leading up, so that you could like guess who your big is, but you didn't really know. So it's kind of fun, but it can also induce some anxiety if you're like that. What else? And then on the last day, you show up. There's a basket with your name on it, a costume, and we walked to this like little park area, and we did the whole reveal and everything like that. And then after that, we went out to dinner with our person and did that whole thing, took pictures, blah blah blah. So it's fun, like it is fun, like you get to experience a lot of different things in a short period of time. So if you're needing that kind of distraction, I think a sorority is a good choice, at least whenever you're so advice. So once you're in it, there will be new member experience type of meetings that you have to go to. So at least Chi Omega, where I went to school, I think it was like the entire fall semester was like a potential new member type of thing. Like you were a new member, but you weren't initiated yet, so you couldn't join the chapter meetings, which were in a separate building. So we had to do new member education for like 6 months, or like August, September, October, November, December, and then I think initiation was January, so like 5 months. So at these, you have to learn like the history of the organization, how many founders there were, where it was founded, how many chapters there are, what are the colors, what does the flower mean, what is your like mission statement type thing. You had to just like do a lot of intensive learning. There was quizzes, things like that. But as a Chi-O, like all the other chapters had initiations like way sooner, like even like the following month type thing. Ours was like very extended, which I kind of liked that it was extended, but it was weird to see people kind of like more fast tracked around you. So that's just something to consider too, like researching about your sorority and like how they do it. But once you were initiated, the way we did it was all the girls were invited to the house, and you had like different shifts. Like you got like a little card that said what your time was that you were supposed to report to the house. So there were all different activities and things like leading up to it. But once you got there, you were sent into one of the bedrooms upstairs, and we had to unbox like letters. Like we had this brown paper bag filled with letters from girls in the chapter, so we got to just sit down by ourselves in a room, close the door, read the letters, and kind of like get into the spirit of initiation. And then we did like initiation in the basement and went through this whole like weird process, and it was in the dark and like all this stuff, and then you come upstairs and you're initiated. And then after that point, you're able to go to like the actual chapter meetings. And at chapter meetings, you have to do a handshake at the door, like a secret handshake that just the Chi-O girls knew, at the door to get in. Then you had to like recite. Ours was called like the symphony, like the Chi-O symphony. There was like some poem or like something like that we had to recite. So they'd put it on the board and we had to say it every time that we went to meeting. Then we also had to sing before meeting and after meeting. There was like a different like song or whatever. And then we had to sit down for like a whole last hour or more. It just depended on the session, but a lot of impatience was had during these times. A lot of people were in a shitty mood. No one ever wanted to go. So just know that like you're required to go to these things, and if you don't, you get a fine. So if you have too much homework, it's not an excuse. Like, sorry, you have to pay. So just know that. And at the meetings, every single member in the board talks, from president all the way down to like facilities manager and the cardinal cabinet, like leaders, like every single person had to talk. So there's a slide on the screen with like reminders, information, news, announcements, all kinds of things like that. So just a lot. Sometimes the meetings would get very preachy and almost like punishment based. Like, you guys acted so bad at that event. You guys were so bad. We are not doing this ever again. Blah, blah, blah. So, and the fact that it's literally college girls that are under the age of 22 saying all this shit to us, it's just like, shut up, you know? So I just got completely fed up with it, and I'm like, I am not doing this another year. Absolutely not. I am not going to, like, there is so much required of you in a sorority. It would blow your brains out. It is insane how much stuff that you have to do. What else can I tell you guys while we're still here? Fraternities. That could be a whole nother conversation. Maybe I should make a video talking about like what I learned about like fraternities and shit. But if you're a sorority girl, the girls in your sorority sorority will end up like every single person will have a fraternity that they prefer going to. So it's not like, oh, all the Kaios are just gonna like go out together on a game day and like that's it, like just girls. No. Each group, like a subgroup of like cliquey girls within the chapter would be like, oh, I want to go to ATO, I want to go to DSig, I'm a Kappa girl, I'm a blah 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 girl. So you almost like base your friends around what kind of guys you're wanting to hang out with. But that's what we did. So if you end up deciding like I did, I was an ATO girl through and through. So I became friends with my Kaio girls that also preferred going to ATO. So every single time I was at an ATO event, I knew there were sisters there, so that part was nice. It felt safer and more comfortable. And then sometimes you could like try out like different fraternities by hanging out with different girlfriends and stuff. So college is just a really weird thing. At least like sorority, like what the hell? It's just weird. And y'all need to remember that these college boys are nasty, immature, disgusting. They smell bad. Their floors are sticky. They smell like BO and beer and alcohol. They don't care about themselves. They don't do shit for themselves that to benefit them. They don't have a future. Like they don't have any focus on anything good. So if you're gonna like get involved in Greek life, it's what you make of it, so you can stay away from that stuff, or you can get wrapped up in it, but just watch out, because these boys are nasty and they'll break your heart and cheat on you. And there's not a lot of like fidelity and goodness in college, but specifically Greek life. It's just very dramatic. Each chapter of girls is very different, very cliquey. They also are obsessed with different fraternity boys, so you end up like seeing, oh, there's the Tridelt girls, oh, there's the 80 Pi girls, they're the groupies of ATO, and like it's just such a weird like ego factory, like it's just too much. So I wish I knew that. I wish I knew how much emphasis social life like was, you know, before I joined. It's not as like pure as you think it is. Let me check my notes for one last thing. I mean, there's still good things about it, but for me it just became way too cliquey and gross. And then like living in the sorority house. If you like alone time, don't live in the sorority house. Don't do it. I ended up living with my boyfriend at the time because I just couldn't do it. It was too much. Like, I didn't like having to sleep in a bunk bed and have my room had 3 girls in it, so it was either 3 girls in a room, 2 girls in a room, or 4 girls in a room. It just depended. And then like sharing a bathroom and like having your caddy, little shower caddy of things like on the shelf. A lot of people just like got dressed in front of each other, which to me that kind of made me uncomfortable. I really wanted my privacy more, so it just started to irritate me. Every single time that there was dinner at the house, like on Mondays, which was like the meeting day, they had fraternity boys over to do serenades. So they would literally sing to us, like, and dance and do a bunch of weird stuff, and then give out roses and like walk up to girls and give them roses. So if you never got a rose, you kind of felt like shit, or you didn't care. But then the people that got roses knew they were special and knew they were pretty. And y'all, like, I got a bunch of roses. I ain't trying to brag, I'm just telling you. So then you get this expectation in your head that like guys like you, but then they actually don't, you know what I mean? So then you're like, did they give that to me because I'm pretty, or did they give that to me like why? And sometimes they would give it to like the weirder girls to like make them feel good. So it's just like, I just think there's a lot of drama and tea surrounding a lot of things that people do. So just letting you know right now. And whenever I lived in the house, I didn't like that was the case. Like, it would stink down there. Like, all the girls from the whole chapter would like crowd in the house on Mondays, but that was like my home, you know what I mean? So it just really started to upset me. I felt like I had no privacy. I will say though, it was fun whenever people were like getting and stuff. Like everyone was doing their makeup together, like on the floor doing makeup, and like you never have to be alone if you don't want to be alone. But if you want to be alone, it's very difficult to be alone. And even like the house mom and the cleaning woman would like come in the room. We weren't allowed to like open the windows because it would like warp the walls. Like there's just a lot of different things that you have to follow and listen to. And then we had like a dehumidifier in the room, so that cleaning lady would come in there all the time, like empty the dehumidifier, or we had to do it. So it just wasn't all that. And then having the chef, like the menu was on the wall or whatever, so you could like see like what you wanted to eat that week, like if you wanted to participate and eat because you were already paying for it. But if you didn't like it, which like I didn't like half the stuff that they made, I would have to go fend for myself and like figure it out. So there's that too. I don't know. It's just very loud in a sorority house. A lot of people like love to like study and like do things in the basement and whatever, and like there's always something for everyone. But if you're a person like me and get a little bit overwhelmed by like too much stimulus, I definitely don't recommend living in the house. It's definitely not for everybody. But it also is kind of fun, but at the same time it's a lot. What else did I want to talk about? I definitely could probably do part 2 if you guys are interested. I think I did cover like pretty much everything that I wanted to cover for now, so I'm just gonna end it off here. Oh yeah, last thing is there's something called slating, which is like voting for the president and all the different roles within the chapter. A lot of people get very like campaigny about it and very bitter if they don't get the position that they want. So you're just witnessing a lot of like upset and like ego kind of stuff, and also like joy and celebration. But it's just like a lot of people's energies all at once. But for like the slating stuff, you had to be in the house for like multiple hours. It was like a 6-hour day, and we had to like vote on all these people, recommend all these people, and there were just so many days like this where we had to go to the house for like a training, a drinking related training, just a meeting about whatever. They would just happen all the time. So it's very like you need to be on your toes and like ready to report and be on call. So if you're not interested in that, don't join a sorority. Alright, now that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it was a whole lot of information, but I do hope that it was helpful to you and that you learned something. And yeah, so I love you all. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And I will talk